Alright guys, let's talk about the monsters from and why they're Wendigos. Or at least based on Wendigos. So for starters, Wendigos are a monster of Native American lore. I am not exactly an expert on all of this, so if I get something wrong, please be gracious. I'm doing my best. I've done a decent amount of research on this, but obviously things that I may not know. Google can only tell me so much. For starters, the monsters are primarily nocturnal. There is not exactly a clear definitive answer as to whether or not Wendigos in lore are nocturnal, but they do tend to hunt more at night or in the colder times of the year, i.e. at night. They're definitely said to prefer colder weather and be more active in the winter months, which we have mostly only seen our monsters at night, other than when we would visit their cave during the day. Wendigos are also very well known to shriek very loudly while they are hunting or out and about. And before we had our talismans, what did Boyd say they did? They shrieked all night long. Wendigos are also very well known for stalking and attacking travelers or members of a group, and they have an insatiable desire for human flesh. Now that does kind of like get a little wonky because they don't eat the entire, person whenever they kill somebody in from. Sorry, TikTok, I mean unalive. But for the most part, we could definitely agree that they do definitely enjoy unaliving people and, at least eating certain parts of them. Now, we don't exactly know for sure how the monsters came to be, but we assume they became monsters whenever they made a deal with the man in yellow for immortality by sacrificing their children. That's at least what we've been led to believe. Traditionally, a person becomes a Wendigo whenever they are overcome with greed or cannibalism or something along those lines. They have an insatiable desire for something, and that's what turns them into a Wendigo. They're overcome with greed or gluttony. Well, the greed and the gluttony of wanting eternal life so much that you would be willing to sacrifice your children is a pretty good example of something that could very well turn you into a Wendigo, at least in my opinion. Wendigos are also, I've already stated, but they stalk and hunt humans, but they are they are well known for being hunters. They enjoy the hunt, much like our monsters. Now, let's talk about the other things that really point me in this direction, which are the things that protect you from Wendigos. Wendigos are supposedly repulsed by magical protection, charms, amulets, etc., and also Anasazi symbols. For those who don't know, the Anasazi are an ancient Native American tribe. And again, I'm not exactly 100% sure how much of this is lore accurate and how much of this is just supernatural accurate, because a lot of this probably does just come out of Supernatural. Shout out Supernatural fans. So again, they are repulsed by magical objects or amulets or charms. You know what we keep in our houses in Fromville? One of these bad boys. I would consider that a charm, wouldn't you? Oh, and on the subject of this, Anasazi symbols are things that repulse them as well, or repel them as well. And take a guess what these two things look a whole lot like. Oh, and these two things look a whole lot like. The Anasazi symbol for moon, or the rising sun. And also, the ends of that one symbol look a lot like the thing for dead person, but maybe this is for a live person. And again, I've mentioned before that this here looks a whole lot like the Norse protection rune. And generally, when you draw your Anasazi symbols, you draw them in a circle as a protective barrier. Well, take a guess what that is. That is a group of tree symbols, essentially, that look a whole lot like the Norse symbol for ash tree, i.e. right there. So, is this charm a protection rune for the people surrounded by other tree runes with Anasazi symbols attached to them? So are these charms designed to replicate the effects of an enclosed, and instead of enclosing an area, it's made to protect the dwelling that it's in? I think that's a pretty good possibility. So again, not all of this is directly translative of one specific type of lore, one specific type of history, but I think it's a combination of a lot of different mythologies / histories. And I think that's kind of the best way to do it when you're creating a series like this, because otherwise it just becomes too obvious if somebody happens to know too much about something. You blend it together a little bit to throw off the audience. So you don't have one expert in a field going, oh, well, that's obviously that, and then he makes a YouTube video about it, and then everybody knows what the outcome is. I think this would be a really good way to do that. And one last thing I will tack on to all of that is, if they can only come out during, or if they tend to prefer colder times to do their hunting, and now Fromville is leaning towards winter and it's getting colder, is that why the man in yellow came out during the day? Or are we going to start seeing the monsters come out during the day? I still don't believe the man in yellow is just another monster. I think he is the big bad, but I am curious to see whether or not the winter months begin to affect the behavior of our monsters. And I'm very excited for 2026 because I want to know how that's going to turn out. Anyway, let me know what you guys think.